Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Cashin Boone's calloused hands trembled slightly as he twisted the last balloon string around the porch railing. 6 years. His little girl was turning 6 today. The Missouri summer sun beat down on his neck as he stepped back to survey his work. The backyard of their modest single-story home had transformed. Rainbow streamers crisscrossed the space between trees. A handmade banner reading, "Happy Birthday, Junie," hung from the back porch, each letter painted in a different color. The unicorn cake, his third attempt after 2 disastrous failures, sat proudly on the picnic table, its frosting horns slightly lopsided but intact. "Perfect," he muttered, checking his watch. 2 o'clock. Guests would arrive soon. The screen door creaked open behind him. Junie bounced out, her dark pigtails dancing, wearing the pink tutu dress they'd picked out together last weekend. "Daddy, it's so pretty." She spun around, taking in the decorations, her eyes wide with wonder. "One of my friends coming." Cashin knelt down, his knees popping in protest after the hours of preparation. At 37, his body reminded him daily of the toll taken by years of physical labor. "Any minute now, princess." He straightened her birthday crown. "Mommy will bring them back any moment." Junie's smile could power the whole neighborhood. "I can't wait to show Caitlin my new unicorn." And Brandon said he's never had cake with rainbow inside. Cashin nodded, pushing down the flicker of uncertainty. Marla had been distant these past weeks. Said she was handling the invitations, the RSVPs, taking care of everything except the backyard setup. He hadn't questioned it. Night shifts at the warehouse kept him busy enough. "Let's get the party favors ready." He took Junie's hand, guiding her to the table where goodie bags waited. 3 o'clock came and went. No cars pulled into their driveway. 3:30. Junie sat on the porch steps, tutu deflating with each passing minute. "Maybe they got lost?" she suggested, voice small. "Maybe." Cashin checked his phone again. No messages from Marla. His calls went straight to voicemail. 4 o'clock. The ice cream in the cake was melting. Junie's shoulders slumped a little more. "Daddy, did I do something wrong? Why doesn't anyone want to come to my party?" Something cracked inside Cashin's chest. "No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong. Never think that." He sat beside her, arm around her tiny shoulders. "Sometimes things just don't work out like we plan." By 5, he knew something was deeply wrong. Junie had stopped asking questions, instead silently collecting fallen balloon petals from around the yard. His text to Marla's friends went unanswered. The house phone rang. Cashin lunged for it. "Hello? Marla?" "Mr. Boone." An unfamiliar woman's voice. "This is Amanda from Pinewood Elementary. I'm so sorry, but I just found a stack of birthday invitations in Junie's classroom cubby. They were never distributed to the children. I only discovered them when cleaning up today." The room tilted sideways. "What?" "The invitations for Junie's party today. They're all here, sealed and addressed." "I'm so sorry." "Thank you." Cashin hung up, hands numb. When he returned to the backyard, Junie looked up at him with those trusting eyes. "Is Mommy coming back soon?" He forced his face not to betray him. "Let's go inside, sweetheart. It's getting chilly." In the kitchen, while Junie picked at a slice of unicorn cake, Cashin noticed the envelope on the counter, his name written in Marla's flowing script. How had he missed it before? He opened it with steady hands, though his heart hammered. "This isn't the life I wanted. I'm not your prisoner. I'm not Junie's clown. No one's coming because I never sent the invites. I'm leaving. Don't follow." The paper didn't shake because his hands had gone still. Deadly still. The kind of stillness that preceded violence in nature. He read it twice more, memorizing every cruel word, then folded it precisely and tucked it in his back pocket. "Daddy, can I open one present?" Junie called from the dining room that he didn't cry. Wouldn't cry. "Coming, princess. Let's open them all." Later, after a makeshift party of just the 2 of them with Cashin playing every game he'd planned for a yard full of children, he tucked an exhausted Junie into bed. She clutched a party favor, a small unicorn plush, against her chest. "Daddy." Her voice was slurred with approaching sleep. "Yes, Junie. Today was still good. Because you were here." Something in him hardened and crystallized as he watched her fall asleep. A decision made itself known in his bones. Marla had not just left him that he could have handled. She had deliberately crushed their daughter's spirit, used innocent children as weapons, used Junie's birthday as the stage for her exit. He would never forgive that. Never. The kitchen clock read 2:17 a.m. when Cashin finally moved from his vigil at Junie's bedside. Sleep wasn't coming tonight. Instead, a cold, methodical focus settled over him as he booted up the family laptop. The joint credit card accounts appeared on screen first. Marla's latest transaction scrolled past a string of boutique purchases, restaurant charges, and, most recently, a hotel booking 40 miles away. His own charges were sparse in comparison. Gas, groceries, Junie's birthday supplies. With 3 clicks, he removed Marla as an authorized user from both cards. Next came the car payment portal. The Lexus had been his gift to her 3 years ago. Registered in his name, payments drawn from his account. A few keystrokes, and the automatic payment stopped. Let her figure that out when they came for it. The shared checking account showed a balance of $4,392.17. 2/3 of it would be gone tomorrow on mortgage and utilities. He transferred everything except $300 to his personal account, then paused. Was this crossing a line? The thought lasted only a second before Junie's disappointed face flashed before him. The birthday invitations sealed and abandoned. No, this wasn't vengeance, it was protection. Everything was in his name because Marla's credit had been ruined long before they met. He'd built security for their family while she'd planned her escape. WY 3:45 a.m. He'd printed out custody filing forms from the county website. By 4:30, he'd written detailed notes documenting Marla's abandonment, her deliberate sabotage of Junie's birthday, her neglect of their daughter in recent months. At T5:15, his alarm went off for his usual wake-up time. He silenced it, already showered and dressed. War required preparation, and he'd learned long ago that sleeping before battle was a luxury rarely afforded. The coffee maker gurgled to life as first light crept through the kitchen blinds. Junie would wake soon, and he needed to be ready not just with breakfast and a smile, but with answers for the questions no 6-year-old should have to ask. Cheryl Bramble's house stood like a fortress on the edge of town, a 2-story colonial with pristine white columns that had always seemed to look down on him, just like its owner. Cashin parked his truck at the curb rather than in the driveway. This wasn't a social call. He rang the doorbell, listening to it echo through what he knew would be an immaculate, oversized foyer. Footsteps approached, not the hurried clip of someone eager to answer, but the reluctant shuffle of someone checking who dared disturb. When the door opened, the smell of expensive perfume barely masked the sour undertone of whiskey. Cheryl Bramble, with her carefully maintained blonde bob and country club attire, narrowed her eyes at the sight of him. Cashin. His name came out like something distasteful. What brings you here without Marla or Junie? It's hardly social hour. She glanced pointedly at her watch, 10:30 a.m. on a Sunday. Junie's with my neighbor. He didn't move when she failed to invite him in. I came to inform you that your daughter abandoned us. Left a note saying she's not coming back. Something flickered across Cheryl's face, not surprise, but annoyance. Like he'd mentioned a minor inconvenience rather than the implosion of a family. Well, she straightened her silk blouse. I can't say I'm shocked. Marla was never meant for domestic captivity. Captivity, the word hung between them. Dangerous. Is that what you call a marriage and motherhood? Cheryl's gaze drifted past him to the neighbor's flower beds. My daughter was raised for bigger things than changing diapers and playing house with a warehouse worker. The insult rolled off him. He'd heard worse from her over the years. Did you know? About her plans? A small, satisfied smile curved her lips. Marla confides in me. She's been seeing someone for months. Someone more suitable. Someone at her gym. It wasn't a question. The pieces aligned in his mind: the sudden fitness obsession, the new clothes, the late-night workout sessions. A wellness entrepreneur. Cheryl's voice carried a hint of pride. Bryce has real ambition. The kind that builds futures instead of fixing forklifts. Cashin nodded once, absorbing this final confirmation. Does your pride extend to what she did to Junie? deliberately ruining a 6-year-old's birthday party, using children as pawns. For the first time, uncertainty crossed Cheryl's features. What are you talking about? She left the birthday invitations at school, made sure no one would come, then used it as her exit strategy. He kept his voice flat, watching realization dawn in the older woman's eyes. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. Cashin took a single step closer, noting with satisfaction how Cheryl instinctively backed up. I want you to deliver a message to Marla when she inevitably calls looking for money. If she tries to use Junie in any way, if she disrupts her life again, or tries to play mother when it's convenient, I'll bury her in court. I have the abandonment documented. I have witnesses to her neglect. Cheryl's face hardened. You forget who you're threatening, Cashin. The Brambles have connections in this town you couldn't imagine. And you forget what a man will do to protect his child. He turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Tell Marla that Junie asked for her this morning. Asked if Mommy was coming home for breakfast. A lie, but one that might land where it needed to. I told her the truth. That Mommy chose someone else over her. He left Cheryl sputtering on her pristine porch, knowing the message would reach Marla. The Brambles thrived on drama and wielded it like a weapon. This time, he'd use that trait against them. In his truck, he checked his phone. A text from Mrs. Paterno next door. Junie's fine. We're making cookies. With it, a photo of his daughter, flower on her nose, the first real smile he'd seen since yesterday. Something in his chest both broke and mended at once. This was what mattered. Not Cheryl's disdain or Marla's betrayal. Just Junie. And he would rebuild their world, brick by brick if necessary. The boxes in the attic hadn't been touched in years. Dust rose in clouds as Cashin pulled down the container labeled Reese in faded marker. Inside, preserved like artifacts, lay the remnants of another life he couldn't save. Photographs of a grinning boy with the same dark eyes as Cashin, but none of the caution. Baseball trophies. A high school diploma that had taken 2 extra years to earn. And beneath it all, the death certificate and insurance paperwork, the bureaucratic remains of a life cut short at 23. Cashin sat back on his heels, a particular photo in his hands. Himself at 19, arms slung protectively around 16-year-old Reese. Their parents' funeral. 2 boys against the world. I tried, little brother, he whispered to the image. I worked 2 jobs, kept the apartment, made sure you finished school. What he didn't say aloud, I wasn't enough. The memory cut fresh, coming home from 14-hour shift to find Reese blue-lipped on the bathroom floor, needles still in his arm. The screaming emptiness that followed. The crushing weight of failure. The insurance money had sat untouched in an account for years. Blood money, he'd always thought. But now it could serve a purpose. Marla didn't know about it. He'd never told her the full story of Reese. She knew his brother had died young, but not how, not why. He'd been too ashamed that he replaced the photo and closed the box. Decision made. The past could haunt him, but it could also arm him. Trent Belker's office smelled of coffee and machine oil. The warehouse foreman looked up as Cashin entered, his weathered face creasing with concern. Heard you needed to talk. Trent gestured to the chair opposite his cluttered desk. Everything okay? Cashin sat, his body heavy with 2 nights of minimal sleep. Marla left. Took off yesterday. Left a note saying she's not coming back. Trent's bushy eyebrows shot up. Damn, Boone. I'm sorry to hear that. Needs to be said officially. I have Junie to think about, and I'll need some flexibility with shifts while I sort things out. Cashin's voice remained steady. Practical. I've got court filings to prepare, childcare to arrange. Take whatever time you need. Trent slid a form across the desk. We can code it as family emergency leave. 2 weeks paid, more unpaid if necessary. Cashin nodded, signing the paper. Appreciate it. Trent studied him. You're taking this calmly. A humorless smile touched Cashin's lips. Not my first catastrophe. The guys will want to help. We can set up a rotation for meals. Maybe. No. The word came out sharper than intended. Cashin softened his tone. Thanks, but Junie needs stability right now. Not a parade of well-meaning mechanics bearing casseroles. Trent nodded slowly. Fair enough. But the offer stands. He hesitated. She say why? Marla, said she wasn't meant to be a prisoner. Cashin's jaw tightened. Turns out she's been seeing someone else. A trainer at her gym. Christ. Trent shook his head. What are you going to do? The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken meaning. The warehouse crew was family of sorts. They'd celebrate together, helped each other move, watched each other's kids in a pinch. They also knew what happened to the delivery guy who'd stolen Cashin's tools last winter. Nothing illegal, but the man had transferred to another facility within a week, reputation in tatters. I'm going to take care of my daughter. Cashin stood. And make sure Marla never hurts her again. Trent's expression showed understanding. You need anything at all, you let me know. Walking through the warehouse to his truck, Cashin felt eyes following him, sympathetic glances from coworkers who'd heard whispers of his situation. No one approached him directly. They knew better. In his truck, he unfolded a notepad and added another item to his growing list. Safety net demolition. Phase 1 complete. Workplace secured. Finances isolated. Home base stabilized. Phase 2 would require reinforcements. 40 minutes outside town, the Green Valley extended stay gleamed with false luxury, a budget hotel masquerading as upscale accommodations. Room 217. According to the information Cashin had coaxed from Marla's ditzy friend Rachel, with a fabricated story about returning Marla's medication. He parked across the street at a diner, nursing a coffee while watching the hotel entrance. 3 hours in, his patience was rewarded. Marla emerged, hair freshly styled, wearing a dress he'd never seen before. She laughed, head thrown back, hand resting on the arm of a tall man with the artificial tan and too white smile of a TV salesman. Bryce Fenlow, the wellness entrepreneur. They climbed into a sleek black BMW, also new, and drove toward downtown. Cashin followed at a distance, years of hunting with his father having taught him the art of tracking without detection. The car stopped outside a storefront gym with a garish sign, Elevate, Fitness and Life Transformation. Beneath it, smaller text boasted, home of Bryce Fenlow's elite training program. Cashin parked and watched as Marla unlocked the door with her own key. Already integrated into the business. Already playing the role of supportive partner. The sight should have cut him, but all he felt was cold certainty. This wasn't impulsive on her part. This was calculated. That he waited until they'd been inside 20 minutes, then approached the neighboring business, a small accounting firm. The receptionist looked up as he entered. Good morning, Cashin smiled, channeling an affability he didn't feel. I'm considering leasing the vacant space 2 doors down. Wondering if you folks have had any issues with the building or the other tenants. The young woman brightened. Oh, it's a great location. We've been here 3 years. No problems with the building, except the parking gets tight sometimes. What about that gym next door? Looks new. Her expression shifted subtly. They opened about 4 months ago. The owner's a bit intense. Always trying to recruit clients from other businesses in the complex. Management's had to speak to him twice about putting flyers on everyone's cars. Doesn't sound very neighborly, Cashin prompted. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Between us? I signed up for his transformation program when they first opened. Paid $600 up front for the exclusive meal plan and supplement package. Turned out to be a printout of generic diet advice and some pills you could buy at any vitamin shop for a quarter of the price. You get a refund. Tried to. His contract fine print said all sales were final. She frowned. My boyfriend says I should report him to someone, but honestly, I was embarrassed about falling for it. A lot of people probably feel the same way. Cashin nodded sympathetically. That's good to know. Thank you. As he left, he added a note to his phone. Possible angle consumer complaints. Through the gym's front window, he caught a glimpse of Marla at a reception desk, smiling brightly at a potential client, playing the part of the supportive girlfriend. His wife of 8 years, mother of his child, now selling overpriced supplements to fund another man's scam. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Paterno, Junie asking when Mommy's coming home for dinner. With it, a photo of his daughter's solemn face. Whatever fleeting doubt had lingered evaporated like morning dew under a blowtorch. This wasn't about him and Marla anymore. This was about protecting Junie from the inevitable crash when Marla's fantasy life imploded. And perhaps, just perhaps, hastening that implosion. Nico Thorne's auto shop sat on the edge of town, a sprawling compound of garage bays and a scrapyard that had been in his family for generations. The sign Thorne Automotive, "We fix what others break," had been hand-painted by Nico himself after returning from his third tour in Afghanistan. Cashin pulled in just as Nico was rolling down the main bay door for the evening. The mechanic straightened at the sound of the truck, recognition bringing a rare smile to his weathered face. "Boone," Nico called, wiping greasy hands on a rag. "Haven't seen you in what? 8 months? Thought you'd forgotten old friends." Cashin climbed out, accepting Nico's firm handshake. "Been busy. Heard about Marla." Nico's expression darkened. "Small town. News travels." "Of course it did, especially when Cheryl Bramble was involved. That's why I'm here." Nico nodded toward a side door. "Come on. Beer's cold, and Ellie's at her mom's for the night." The office behind the garage was Spartan, but comfortable. A worn couch, a sturdy desk, a small refrigerator, and walls covered with photos of Nico's daughter and his military unit. Nico handed Cashin a beer and dropped into the desk chair. "So," Nico said after they'd both taken a drink, "what's the damage assessment?" She cleaned out her closet, left a note, and deliberately ruined Junie's birthday party on her way out. Cashin kept his voice neutral, though his grip on the bottle tightened. "She shacked up with some trainer from her gym. Guy named Bryce Fenlow." Nico's expression hardened. "The one with the diet pill scheme? Man's a snake. You know him. Know of him." Ellie's teacher got suckered into one of his transformation challenges, lost $3,000, and ended up in the hospital with heart palpitations from whatever garbage he was pushing. Nico took a long drink. "I offered to have a conversation with him about it." Teacher declined. The implied threat behind conversation wasn't lost on Cashin. Nico had always been direct in handling problems. "I'm not looking to break kneecaps," Cashin said, "but I need information. Legal leverage. I'm going for full custody of Junie, and I want to make sure Marla's house of cards collapses before she thinks about fighting me for it." Nico leaned back, studying him. "Why come to me? You got plenty of friends closer to home. Because you understand what's at stake." Cashin met his gaze steadily. "You're raising Ellie alone. You know what it costs. What it takes." After his wife's death from cancer 3 years ago, Nico had rebuilt his life around his daughter with the same precision he'd once used to rebuild engines: methodical, unyielding, complete. "What do you need?" Nico asked finally. "Eyes and ears. Information. Marla's using some of my credentials to build this new life. I need to know exactly what, so I can cut it off without looking like I'm targeting her." Nico nodded slowly. "I might know some people. Former clients with connections to the business licensing office. County records. I don't want charity," Cashin clarified. "I'll pay for whatever needs paying. This isn't about money." Nico's voice hardened. "This is about holding people accountable. I hate liars. Always have." He stood, moving to a filing cabinet. "My cousin Delia works at the bank where most of the strip mall business owners have accounts. She's discreet. I don't want anyone risking their job. She owes me. I rebuilt her ex-husband's truck last year. Made sure a few critical bolts weren't quite tight enough." A grim smile touched Nico's lips. "Nothing dangerous. Just inconvenient." For the first time in days, Cashin felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief, exactly, but the comfort of having someone who understood the rules of engagement. "I have one condition," Nico said, returning to his seat. "You bring Junie over for dinner with Ellie and me tomorrow night. That girl needs to know she's got more people in her corner than just her old man." Cashin nodded, unexpected gratitude tightening his throat. "Deal." They spent the next 2 hours mapping out a strategy, not through illegal means or direct confrontation, but through the power of community knowledge and legal documentation. By the time Cashin left, he had a list of names, businesses, and potential pressure points that could be leveraged without ever appearing to come from him directly. As he drove home, a text from Nico lit up his phone. "You're not alone in this fight, brother. We protect our own." The words settled something in Cashin, a reminder that while Marla might have Bryce and her mother, he had something more valuable: allies who understood the meaning of loyalty. Pine Grove Elementary looked smaller in daylight than it had at the parent-teacher night months ago. Cashin walked the polished hallway, following the secretary's directions to room 112. The call from school had been brief but concerning. Junie's behavior has changed drastically. We need to discuss some drawings she's made. Outside the classroom, children's artwork lined the walls, bright, chaotic expressions of young imaginations. Cashin spotted Junie's immediately meticulous for a 6-year-old, her natural talent evident even in crayon. His heart sank when he saw the subject. A table set for a party, chairs empty, a small figure standing alone. Mr. Boone. He turned to find a woman watching him, early 30s, with kind eyes and a practical bob. She wore a paint-splattered smock over simple clothes. Miss Claret. He extended his hand. Thank you for calling me. Please come in. She led him into the empty classroom. The children are at music class. I wanted us to have privacy. The room was a riot of color and educational materials, but impeccably organized. She gestured to an adult-sized chair at a reading table. I understand Junie's home situation has changed recently. She began gently. Cashin stiffened. Who told you that? Junie did, in her own way. Ms. Claret opened a folder containing several drawings. These are from the past 3 days. We've been working on a My Family project. The progression was heartbreaking. First, a typical family portrait, Cashin, Marla, and Junie holding hands in front of a house. Then just Cashin and Junie. The final drawing showed Junie alone at what was clearly her birthday table, with empty chairs around it. She told the other children her mommy didn't want to be her mommy anymore, Ms. Claret said quietly. When Bailey Peterson asked why no one came to her party, rage flared in Cashin's chest. The invitations were never delivered. Her mother deliberately sabotaged her birthday before leaving us. Ms. Claret's professional neutrality slipped, shock registering briefly. I see. That explains some things. She hesitated. Junie's always been one of my most engaged students. This week, she's withdrawn. Doesn't raise her hand. Sits alone at lunch. What can I do? The question came out rawer than he intended. Children are resilient, but they need consistency. Honesty, appropriate to their age. And a safe space to express their feelings. She offered a tentative smile. I've started a lunch bunch group. Just a few kids who need extra support. Junie's welcome to join. I'd appreciate that. Cashin ran a hand through his hair. I'm figuring this out as I go. You're doing better than you think. Ms. Claret's voice softened. Most parents in your situation wouldn't notice the changes so quickly. Wouldn't make themselves available to come in mid-work day. She's all I have. He looked up, meeting her gaze directly. I won't let her think this was her fault. Something shifted in Ms. Claret's expression of recognition, perhaps of the depth of his commitment. If it helps, she said, I noticed the birthday invitations in her cubby last week. I mentioned it to Mrs. Boone when she picked Junie up. She said they decided to hand-deliver them instead. The confirmation of Marla's deliberate cruelty hit like a physical blow. Thank you for telling me. I shouldn't have, professionally speaking. Ms. Claret gathered the drawings. But as someone who cares about Junie, I thought you should know all the facts. As they walked toward the door, she handed him a business card. My cell number's on the back. If you have questions, or if Junie needs anything, please don't hesitate. Cashin pocketed the card, oddly touched by the gesture. Thank you, Ms. Claret. Angela, she corrected with a small smile. My students call me Ms. Claret. Their parents use my first name. The simple normalcy of the interaction, so unlike the tension-filled exchanges of the past days, caught him off guard. Angela, then. Thank you. Walking back to his truck, Cashin felt a strange duality, the hollow ache of seeing Junie's pain manifested in her drawings, alongside a curious lightness from the conversation with Angela Claret. An unexpected ally, perhaps, or maybe just a decent person doing her job well. Either way, another piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Another witness to Marla's calculated cruelty. Another adult in Junie's life who saw her value that he started the truck, adding a note to his growing file. Ms. Claret, possible character witness for custody hearing. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he added, arrange Junie's school friend's makeup party. Show her not everyone leaves. The envelope arrived on Wednesday, 10 days after Marla's departure. No return address, just his name and confidential stamped across the front. Inside, a single document, a lease agreement for commercial property at 1452 Commerce Way. The location of Bryce's gym. Cashin scanned it, breath-catching, when he found what the anonymous sender had circled in red. His own signature, dated 3 months ago, as co-guarantor for a $75,000 lease obligation, except he'd never signed it. Never even seen it before, that he studied the signature closely. A decent forgery close enough to fool a cursory glance, but missing the slight upward hook he always put on the final Ian Boone. His phone rang. "Nico, did you get it?" No preamble, just direct confirmation. "Just now." "Where did it come from?" "Delia found it when the property management company submitted a credit check. Figured you should see what your wife's been up to." Cashin's mind raced through implications. This is fraud. Identity theft. Exactly. And from what Delia says, they timed it right. The building owner was desperate after the previous tenant broke lease. Didn't look too closely at the paperwork. A plan began forming, crystal clear in its simplicity. "This changes things." "How so?" Nico asked. "I was playing defense. Now I can go on offense." Cashin moved to his laptop, already pulling up the county property records website. "I need to make some calls. I'll fill you in tonight." The next hours passed in a blur of bureaucratic efficiency. First, a police report documenting the identity theft. Then, a call to the building management company, followed by their legal department. A fraud alert placed on his credit report. Paperwork filed with the district attorney's office. By evening, he'd set in motion an audit of Bryce's business prompted by the concerned citizen complaints he'd arranged through Nico's network. 5 former clients willing to testify about false advertising and unfulfilled contract obligations. But the masterstroke came at midnight when he logged into his long-dormant investment account, the one holding Reese's insurance money. After 13 years of not touching what he'd always considered blood money, he transferred the entire balance, $127,000, to a newly established LLC. Phoenix Holdings. 3 phone calls and 1 wire transfer later, he had an appointment with the building's owner, a man now desperate to unload the property after learning his primary tenant's lease was secured through fraud. The symmetry felt right. Money from one tragedy funding the resolution of another. Reese would have appreciated the irony. "This is for Junie," he thought as he finalized the transfer. "And for you, little brother. Should have used this to help you when you were alive. At least it can protect what matters now." The headlines in the local paper were modest but effective. "Local gym under investigation for consumer fraud," and 3 days later, "Fitness center closed pending criminal charges." Cashin watched it unfold from a distance, never directly involved but orchestrating each domino's fall. The property transfer went through silently. Ownership vested in Phoenix Holdings with no public connection to him. The eviction notice, however, was very public, posted on the gym's door during peak business hours. Reports came back through Nico's network. Bryce, panicking, tried to secure emergency funding. Marla, shocked to discover her credit cards suddenly declined, her access to Cashin's accounts terminated. The BMW, repossessed from the hotel parking lot after Bryce missed 2 payments. The final blow came when an anonymous tip to a local blog revealed the identity theft angle, complete with copies of the forged documents. The story spread through town like wildfire, fueled by the long-standing community respect for Cashin and his reputation as a straight shooter. Cashin was in the courthouse filing room when he overheard 2 clerks discussing it. "Can you believe that Bramble woman? Forging her husband's signature while he's working nights to support their family. Always thought she had her nose in the air for someone who married a mechanic. Guess now we know why, just using him until something shinier came along. And on her daughter's birthday, who does that?" He kept his head down, reviewing custody paperwork, allowing himself just a moment's satisfaction. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict, and no amount of Cheryl Bramble's social connections could overturn it. That afternoon, during his court-scheduled custody hearing, Marla failed to appear. Her lawyer, a nervous young man, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, requested a continuance. "Your Honor," he stammered, "my client is experiencing some unexpected financial difficulties and could not arrange transportation today. The judge, a stern woman with 3 decades on the bench, peered over her glasses. Mr. Rossi, this is a custody matter involving a 6-year-old child. Transportation difficulties are not acceptable excuses. I understand, Your Honor, but furthermore, the judge continued, reviewing her notes, I have before me documentation of abandonment, evidence of identity theft currently under criminal investigation, and school records indicating deliberate emotional harm to the minor child. She looked up sharply. Is your client contesting any of these facts? The lawyer swallowed. We would like time to prepare a response. Mr. Boone has requested emergency sole custody with supervised visitation only. The judge turned to Cashin. You're not seeking to terminate parental rights at this time? No, Your Honor. Cashin stood straight, his voice steady. I believe Junie should have a relationship with her mother, but one that's structured and secure. The documentation of her recent behavior demonstrates that unsupervised access presents a risk to Junie's emotional well-being. The judge nodded, satisfied. Temporary emergency custody granted to the father, with supervised visitation for the mother to be arranged through family services. We'll revisit permanent arrangements in 90 days. She banged her gavel. Next case. Outside the courthouse, Cashin allowed himself a moment's pause on the steps, sunlight warming his face. Not a victory celebration, he took no joy in any of this but acknowledgement that the first phase was complete. Junie was legally protected. His phone buzzed with a text from Angela. Heard the news. Junie had a good day today. She shared a circle time that, Daddy fixed it so Mommy can't take me away. Thought you'd want to know. Something tightened at his throat. For all his planning and machinations, that simple message meant more than any legal victory. Later that evening, as he tucked Junie into bed, she looked up with solemn eyes. Daddy, is Mommy in trouble? He chose his words carefully. Mommy made some bad choices, honey. And when grown-ups make bad choices, there are consequences. Like when I don't clean my room and lose screen time. Something like that. He smoothed her hair. But no matter what, you didn't do anything wrong. And you'll always have me. She nodded, considering this with the gravity only children can bring to simple truths. Mrs. Paterno says sometimes families change shape but don't break. Like water can be ice or steam, but it's still water. Mrs. Paterno is very smart. Cashin kissed her forehead. Get some sleep, princess. Tomorrow's a new day. As he turned out the light, Junie's voice came once more from the darkness. Daddy, I'm glad our family is just you and me now. It feels quieter. Out in the hallway, Cashin leaned against the wall, her words washing through him like a cleansing tide. Out of the chaos, his daughter had found peace. It was all that mattered. 6 months passed like the turning of seasons' gradual change, so consistent you only noticed when looking back at where you'd started. The house, once cluttered with Marla's endless decorative pillows and scented candles, had simplified into a home of practical comfort. Cashin had repainted Junie's room galaxy purple instead of princess pink, at her request. The backyard now featured a sturdy treehouse he and Nico had built over 3 weekends, with Junie as self-appointed supervisor. The repair business had started almost accidentally. First, Nico needed help with a transmission rebuild that coincided with Ellie's dance recital. Then word spread that Cashin Boone was doing side work. By month 4, they'd formalized a partnership, Thorne and Boone Specialty Repairs, with Cashin handling the precision mechanical work while maintaining his warehouse job. Today is Saturday morning in early fall. Cashin stood at the kitchen counter making pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, while Junie carefully arranged berries in a faces on each one. Ms. Claret says my reading level is almost 2nd grade now, Junie announced, placing blueberry eyes on a Triceratops pancake. Is that right? Cashin flipped another pancake. Seems like those extra reading sessions are paying off. This sessions had begun as a practical solution Angela offering to help with Junie after school twice a week, while Cashin balanced work schedules. They'd evolved into a comfortable routine, often ending with Angela staying for dinner. She says I should start a journal, Junie continued, to write down important things I want to remember. That's a good idea. Cashin slid the finished pancakes onto plates. What kind of important things? Junie considered this seriously. Like how you made my party the second time. And how Ellie's my best friend now. And how Miss Claret always brings the cookies with no nuts, because I'm allergic even though the other kids like the nut ones better. The doorbell rang, interrupting the moment. Junie jumped down. That's them. She raced to the door while Cashin wiped his hands, smiling at her enthusiasm. Saturday breakfast had become a standing tradition, Nico and Ellie joining them, occasionally Angela too. Voices in the entryway, the familiar sound of Ellie and Junie's excited chatter, Nico's deep laugh. Cashin added more batter to the griddle. Life had found its new rhythm. Later, after breakfast and a chaotic board game that ended with Nico dramatically falling off his chair to make the girls laugh, Cashin walked Angela to her car. Thanks for coming, he said, the words simple but genuine. She smiled, tucking her hair behind her ear. Thanks for inviting me. Again, something unspoken passed between them, the careful, deliberate pace of whatever this was becoming. Neither rushing, both aware of the precious cargo watching from the porch. The girls want to try that new hiking trail tomorrow, Cashin said. If you're free, we could make a group thing. I'd like that. She opened her car door, then paused. 6 months ago, I worried about Junie every night. Now I look forward to seeing what new adventure she's tackled. You've done that, Cashin. You rebuilt her world. The words settled around him, warming something that had been cold for too long. We all did. As Angela drove away, Nico approached from the house. So, you finally going to ask her out properly? Or are we all pretending these group activities aren't just elaborate excuses? Cashin shook his head, smiling. Taking it slow. Nothing wrong with that. Nico clapped him on the shoulder. Good things are worth the wait. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, nearly 8 months to the day since Marla had left. Plain envelope, local postmark, his name in handwriting he still recognized despite everything. Cashin sat at the kitchen table after Junie was asleep, turning the unopened envelope over in his hands. Inside would be excuses, perhaps apologies, possibly threats. None of it mattered anymore. Marla lived in a 1-bedroom apartment across town now, working checkout at a grocery store after the fraud charges had limited her employment options. She'd attended exactly 3 supervised visits with Junie before canceling the rest. Her mother had disowned her publicly when the story hit the local news. Cheryl Bramble couldn't abide the social embarrassment of a daughter charged with fraud. The envelope felt light, containing just a single sheet. Whatever Marla had to say, she'd kept it brief. Cashin struck a match, holding the flame to the corner of the unopened envelope. It caught quickly, edges curling into ash. He dropped it into the metal trash can, watching it consume itself. Why did you do this? He'd never know if those were her words. Never care to find out. Some questions didn't deserve answers. Some people didn't deserve second chances. He cleaned up the ashes, checked the locks, and looked in on Junie sleeping peacefully, her favorite stuffed unicorn clutched against her chest. The party favor from the birthday that had broken everything. No one's ever going to forget your birthday again, he whispered, the promise both benediction and oath. Outside her window, the treehouse stood silhouetted against the night sky, a fortress built from Betrayal's aftermath. Beyond it, the lights of their small town twinkled, a community that had become, unexpectedly, a safety net woven of unlikely alliances and second chances. Cashin closed Junie's door softly. Tomorrow would bring Angela's reading session, Nico's automotive puzzles, Ellie's boundless energy. It would bring purpose and peace. Not the life he'd planned, but the life they deserved.